I want to just jump right in on what's been happening in the last 48 hours. We had a strike in Beirut that took out Fuad Shukr, the top military commander of Hezbollah, and then a strike in Tehran that took out Ismail Haniyeh, who's the top official of Hamas. So as you think about what's happened in the last 48 hours, what does it tell you about Israeli capabilities? And how do you think Iran is going to respond to what has happened?
What I see in these two events, first and foremost, is the long arm of justice reaching back to 1983 against Fouad Shakur, and certainly his more recent attacks horrifically against Israelis in the northern portions of the Jewish state. So point one would be what we've seen is the immense reach and capability and memory of Israel to go after its enemies. Second point, what I see is deterrence. This is the kind of activity that over time reestablishes deterrence, which was broken, let's face it, on October 7th. The enemies of Israel have to see again and again that they will pay a price both to their organization and, in this case, quite personally. And then third and finally, what I see here is a tactical blow, as in taking away the capability of a Fouad Shakur, despicable as he is, but taking away his talents, his experience, his leadership, if you will, of Hezbollah, and coupling that with taking out Haniyeh, both as an act of revenge, an act of deterrence, and also taking away the technical, tactical, and political capabilities that he brings. What are the mullahs going to do in response? Well, as I always say about the Iranians, they'll fight to the last Houthi, or the last Hamas, or the last Hezbollah. All of us are watching that northern border, Hezbollah. Yeah. They will certainly respond. I think they will probably choose not to respond in a massive way because Iran is not ready for a wider war.
In essence, Israel's facing a seven-front war. If you're talking about Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, what could happen in the West Bank, Gaza, the Houthis, and Iran itself, it's a very complex threat matrix. So how would you look at that overall threat matrix, and how should Israel approach taking on that kind of a multi-headed threat?
Point one is Israel needs to draw even closer to the United States in this period of time, and the United States needs to draw Israel closer. But even more importantly, in a period of time like this, it cracks open the unblinking eye of American intelligence, our satellite systems, our on-the-ground human intelligence, and then we combine that with the exceptional capabilities of the Israeli intelligence, to include in particular their human intelligence assets, their technical means of gathering information. If I were advising my friends at the IDF, and I think this will not be a surprise to any of them, it would be look north, look to Hezbollah. And then thirdly, within the state of Israel itself, I think you have to be prepared for on-the-ground sporadic terrorism attacks, which could come from the West Bank, could come from some element of Hamas that evades the IDF. I think those are the key fronts.
So let's look north ourselves. You have the ongoing threat of Hezbollah, thousands of missiles that have been launched at Israel since October 8th. Israel faces the question of how they can respond to that at a time when Israel signaled they do not want a full-out war if they can avoid that. But what do you think Israel needs to do in the coming weeks and months?
Number one, I'd be looking to sever the logistic support and connections coming from Iran to Lebanon. And that means strikes in and around Syria, Iraq. Portions of that supply chain have to be diminished. Number two, I think electronics, watch cyber, watch intelligence gathering on social networks, again, working alongside the U.S. systems. That surveillance part is going to be crucial. And then third, and most obviously, is air defense. But here's the problem, and you allude to it. Hezbollah, which has fired thousands of rockets, probably has 150,000 still in their arsenal. That is going to face enormous challenge, even to systems as capable as Iron Dome, Arrow, THAAD, Patriot. So in this moment, I think it would make a great deal of sense for the United States to be working closely with the Israelis on increasing the level of air defense tactically in the country.
And are there things that Israel should be doing preemptively to push back Hezbollah on the border there and create some kind of a sense of safety for the 60,000 people who want to return to their homes in northern Israel?
If Iran is not getting the message, and if Hezbollah is not getting the message, then I think you need to shift to the best defense can be a strong offense. That's a rollback strategy that goes after some of these systems in southern Lebanon.
Well, let's turn to the Houthis. You know, the Houthis have been having a huge impact on world commerce by the impact they're having on shipping. They've repeatedly attacked U.S. forces. They've now struck Tel Aviv with a drone that was in the air for 16 hours and was able to come in from the west and hit Tel Aviv. So give us a little bit of a sense, given your experience, what would be a decisive policy to take on the Houthi threat?
So, point one, very capable fighting force. They've been in combat for a decade in a civil war in their country, Yemen. Point two, we have been, in my view, and I articulate this in the Bloomberg piece, far too kid gloves in dealing with the Houthis. They are shooting missiles at American warships. In other words, they're attacking the United States of America, and they're doing it on a daily basis. If these are Houthi terrorists and they are shooting daily, weekly anyway, at American warships, we ought to be going after them on a daily, weekly basis. We need to go at leadership in Yemen who are conducting these strikes. Second point, we need to cut off, just as I mentioned a moment ago, cut off Hezbollah in the north. We need to cut off the flow of weapons, the flow of equipment from Tehran to Yemen. Almost all of it goes by sea. We got American destroyers who can do that. And then third point, if that doesn't wake up the mullahs, then we need to go after Iranian maritime assets. They typically have one or two warships in the vicinity providing intelligence to the Houthis.
Let's turn to Gaza and talk a little bit about that. As a military leader, how do you assess the campaign so far that Israel has carried out?
I think it's been a successful campaign in denuding, and probably at this point have taken away about 75% of Hamas fighting capability. Number two, the IDF has broken the back of the tunnel complex. That's really the military center of gravity here. They need to be exploded, sealed off, flooded in some cases, because that's where Hamas was able in secret to create the capability that led to October 7th. I think Israel's been quite successful in that. And then number three, Israel has been successful going after leadership, but increasingly they're going after Hamas leadership, taking out Haniyeh. He's not a military part of Hamas, but very inspirational. So I think the campaign has been successful in that regard. And they still have work to do, but I think the work is probably measured at this point, not in weeks, but probably in another several months before the IDF can fully disengage.
So I want to move to Turkey for a moment.
Terrible.
You're a Supreme Allied Commander. You are involved working with them as a member of NATO. The president recently said that he would consider invading Israel. What are your thoughts?
I know Turkey very well. And I think the problem here is front and center is Erdogan himself, who has had deep antipathy for Israel for really about a decade since the Mavi Marmara incident, when there was a controversy about a ship that was bringing supposedly humanitarian assistance to Gaza. This broke relations between Israel and Turkey, and Erdogan has personalized this and has made a whole series of angry, unhelpful comments about Israel. So the question is, what should we do about it? I think here the United States has a role because of NATO. You're right, relations are somewhat strained inside the NATO alliance, but U.S. still has a great deal of influence with Turkey. The U.S. ought to be calling and putting pressure on Turkey to at least walk back the kind of ridiculous comment that he's considering invading Israel.
Well, Admiral, thank you so much for this conversation today. As I say, our membership really appreciates it. You always bring a very important perspective. And we once again appreciate your service to our country over many, many years and your friendship with AIPAC.
Thank you so much. I'll see you next time we do it. All the best.
I look forward to it.